I never thought I'd find myself writing something like this, but here we are. My name is Jake, and my life took a wild turn that I never saw coming. I was living a comfortable life in a suburban neighborhood with my wife, Lauren. We met in college, fell in love, and built a life together. I was the happy husband. I really thought I was doing everything right. But as it turns out, it was all a facade. Let me set the stage for you. We had a nice home, decent jobs, and even a couple of vacations under our belts. That's what everyone thought, right? The perfect couple. But behind the scenes, things were getting rocky. Lauren had started acting distant. Small things began to change. She was working late more often, her phone seemed to be glued to her side, and there was this new sparkle in her eye that didn't quite sit right with me. At first, I brushed it off as her just being busy with work, but deep down, I felt something was off. I should have listened to my gut. It was the little things that were starting to add up, but I didn't want to believe it. I was still wrapped up in the idea of our happy marriage, and I didn't want to see the signs. Then one day, while I was cleaning out the garage, I stumbled upon a hidden box. It was half covered by some old camping gear, and curiosity got the better of me. I opened it, and my heart sank. Inside were receipts, hotel bills, romantic dinner invoices, and even a lingerie catalog with a note scribbled on it. The note was from a guy named Mark, a name I had never heard before. It was a simple message: "Can't wait to see you again, beautiful." My heart raced and my mind began racing. Who was this Mark? Why was Lauren keeping this from me? Anger surged through me, but I felt completely paralyzed. I couldn't just sit there with this newfound information, so I decided to confront her when she got home. The moment Lauren walked through the door, I felt like a lion ready to pounce. I asked her to sit down, and she looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and concern. I laid the receipts out on the table like evidence. In a courtroom, her eyes widened, and for a split second I could see fear flash across her face. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice steady but laced with emotion. She tried to play it cool at first. "Jake, you know how things have been stressful lately. You're reading too much into this," she said, brushing it off as if it were nothing. But I wasn't falling for it. Stressful. Hotel bills and romantic dinners aren't just stress relief. I shot back, my heart pounding as I pressed her for the truth. That's when she cracked. "Okay, fine, I had an affair, but you don't understand," she exclaimed, her voice rising. The excuses poured out. She claimed I had neglected her and hadn't been attentive enough. All those late nights she spent at work suddenly made sense. My world shattered right there in that conversation. The emotional impact of that moment was visceral. I felt the anger bubbling, but alongside it was an overwhelming sense of betrayal and heartbreak. How could she do this to us, to me? The sadness came like a tidal wave, and I found myself questioning everything: the love we built, the promises we made. It was as if I was watching my entire life crumble in front of me, and I was helpless to stop it. As I listened to her half-hearted attempts to justify her actions, I felt the walls closing in around me. My heart raced, and I struggled to stay calm. I had to make a decision. What was I going to do? Was there a way to salvage our marriage, or was it time to walk away? The thought of her betrayal was heavy in my chest, suffocating me. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a long, painful journey. After that explosive confrontation with Lauren, I was left in a haze of disbelief and pain. The house that once felt like a sanctuary now seemed more like a prison, each room echoing the memories of our happier times. I spent the night tossing and turning in bed, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal. I could hardly look at her without feeling a surge of anger mixed with heartbreak. I had to gather my thoughts. I needed to think clearly about what I wanted to do next. The next morning I woke up with a heavy heart, but also a newfound clarity. I was done with the tears and the anger. I was a man who had been wronged, but I also realized I had a choice. I could either let this destroy me or rise from the ashes. It was time to take control of my life and, more importantly, take control of my future. Lauren was still in bed when I left for work. I didn't want to face her just yet. I needed to breathe and think. As I drove to the office, thoughts swirled in my head, but one idea began to crystallize: revenge. Not in the sense of a petty retaliation, but rather a way to reclaim my power and rebuild my life. I had spent years trying to make our marriage work, pouring my love and effort into it, while she had thrown it all away for a fling with a wealthy businessman. If she could betray me for someone with money, then I would show her what success really looked like. That day at work, I started to brainstorm ideas for a side business I had always dreamed about but never had the courage to pursue. It was an online marketing company focusing on helping local businesses grow their digital presence. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I thought about building something from the ground up, a testament to what I could achieve on my own. I used every spare moment to sketch out plans and research the industry. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into work. I started networking and reaching out to potential clients, all while managing my 9-to-5 job. It was exhilarating. I began to see a flicker of hope and purpose in my life that had been missing for so long. I all started hitting the gym, channeling my anger and hurt into physical strength. I was getting in shape, feeling confident and finding my groove again. Lauren was still trying to win me back, showering me with apologies and explanations that felt hollow. I was just confused, Jake. It didn't mean anything, she would say, her tone pleading. Frankly, I was tired of her excuses. I realized I didn't want to be her second choice or a fix for her midlife crisis. I deserved better, and I was going to show her just how much better I could be without her. The more successful I became at work, the more determined I felt to cut ties with the past. I started saving money and began envisioning a life where I could fully embrace my independence. I set goals for my business and began to see real progress. I developed a website, created a social media presence, and even secured a few small clients. My confidence grew with every positive interaction. There was something liberating about taking control of my life. I was no longer the passive husband waiting for love and attention. I was a man on a mission. One night, after a particularly successful meeting with a new client, I returned home buzzing with excitement, only to find Lauren waiting for me with dinner. She tried to engage in small talk, but I could sense the tension in the air. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her voice softening. I knew this was going to be another round of her trying to plead her case, but I was in no mood. "Honestly, Lauren, I don't think that's a good idea," I replied, wanting to avoid another emotional confrontation. "What do you mean? I'm trying to make things right. I love you," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "Love? It's hard to love someone who doesn't respect their marriage," I responded, my tone firm. There was no going back to the way things were. I had moved on emotionally, even if I still had one foot in the door physically. I watched as the realization sank in. She had lost me, and I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes, but instead of feeling guilty, I felt empowered. I was building an empire of my own, and I wouldn't let her manipulation pull me back into the darkness. Things continued to escalate in my business. Every small victory felt like a nail in the coffin of my past life. I was no longer the sad husband. I was a man transforming his pain into power. With each new client and each successful project, I felt more and more like I was reclaiming my identity. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about self-discovery. I was learning that I could be successful, happy, and fulfilled without Lauren. The love I once had for her began to fade like an old photograph. Replaced by the excitement of forging my own path, it became clear that I was meant for so much more than being someone's second choice. I was ready to embrace the future. As the weeks turned into months, the momentum I had built in my new business became undeniable. I landed larger clients, and my reputation in the local market began to grow. The thrill of building my own empire fueled my determination. I was no longer the man who had been shadowed by betrayal. I was becoming a force to be reckoned with. But while I was busy building my business and my confidence, Lauren was still trying to worm her way back into my heart. She would call me at odd hours, send me texts filled with remorse, and even showed up at my office with lunch, pretending to support my new venture. I could see through her facade. She was trying to regain control over me, but I was resolute in my decision to move on. One evening, I was at a networking event, chatting with potential clients and industry peers. I felt like I was finally in my element. That's when I bumped into Sarah, a marketing consultant I had met a few times in passing. She was smart, ambitious, and strikingly beautiful. We hit it off immediately, and I found myself laughing and enjoying her company more than I had in a long time. We talked about everything: our careers, aspirations, and the challenges we faced. It was refreshing to connect with someone who wasn't tied to my past and who saw me for who I was becoming, not the man I used to be. We exchanged numbers, and I felt a rush of excitement that I hadn't felt in ages. It was a reminder that life could still be thrilling and there were still people out there who appreciated me for who I was. That night, I returned home to find Lauren waiting for me. Her face lit up when I walked in, but I could see the tension beneath her smile. "How was the event?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "It was good," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I didn't want to engage in her games anymore. "I was thinking we could do something fun this weekend, just like old times," she suggested, her eyes hopeful. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. "Lauren, we are not old times anymore. I'm not going back to that. You should know that by now," I said firmly. I could see her face drop, and for a moment I felt a twinge of sadness for the woman I once loved. But it quickly dissipated as I reminded myself of the betrayal. Over the next few weeks, I began to see that the more successful I became, the more desperate Lauren became to regain my affection. She would show up at my workplace unannounced, trying to impress my colleagues with her charm. But the more she put on a show, the more I saw her for what she truly was: a woman clinging to a relationship that was already dead. The tipping point came when I agreed to meet with Sarah again for coffee. We had been texting back and forth, and I felt a genuine connection with her. I wasn't looking for a relationship, but it felt good to be around someone who appreciated me and my efforts. The chemistry was undeniable. When Lauren found out, the confrontation was explosive. She had been snooping on my phone and discovered my messages to Sarah. That evening she stormed into my home, her face flushed with anger. "So you've moved on. You're just going to throw away everything we built for some fling?" she shouted, her voice barely containing her rage. "Fling? Sarah is not a fling. She's someone who respects my work and sees me for who I am now. You, on the other hand, are clinging to the past," I shot back, my heart racing as I faced her wrath. Lauren's eyes narrowed, and I could see her mask of confidence slipping. "You think you can just replace me? You'll never find someone like me again," she hissed. I shook my head, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. "You're right. I won't find someone like you. I'll find someone better, someone who values honesty and loyalty." The silence that followed was deafening. I was finally able to articulate the feelings that had been swirling inside me for so long. I realized that I didn't need to be afraid of losing her anymore. I had gained so much more in the process of moving on. The confrontation left Lauren fuming and hurt, but it also solidified my resolve. I had taken control of my life, and I would no longer let her manipulate me with guilt or false promises. I was done with her games and her lies. In the weeks following, I poured even more energy into my business. The success I was experiencing was empowering. I even hired a team to help expand my reach. The thrill of building something real and substantial replaced any residual feelings I might have had for Lauren. I was no longer the man who had been sidelined by betrayal. I was thriving. With every success, I felt like I was getting a little closer to my ultimate goal: to show Lauren and myself that I could create a life of my own, one that didn't revolve around her. The future was looking bright, and I was ready to embrace it fully. As my business continued to flourish, I found myself settling into a routine that felt both exhilarating and liberating. I was working long hours, but instead of feeling drained, I felt invigorated. Each day brought new challenges, and I was more than ready to face them head-on. I was building not just a career, but a life I could be proud of, one where I was in control and thriving. Sarah and I had begun to see each other more frequently. What started as coffee turned into dinner dates, and soon we were spending weekends together exploring the city. She was smart, ambitious, and had a sense of humor that made me feel alive. Each time we met, I felt a little more of the burden from my past lift. With Sarah, I could be open about my struggles and experiences without the weight of betrayal hanging over my head. I remember one Saturday evening, after a long day of meetings, Sarah suggested we go for a drive to the coast. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace wash over me. As we drove along the ocean, we laughed and talked about our dreams for the future. It felt so different from the suffocating conversations I had with Lauren. But while I was enjoying my new life, Lauren was still desperately trying to regain a foothold in my world. She would occasionally text me, asking about my day or trying to engage me. Small talk. I had long since stopped responding. I didn't want to go back to that place of hurt and confusion. I was finally moving forward, and I had no intention of looking back. Then one day, out of the blue, I received a message from Lauren that shook me to my core. It was a long, rambling text filled with apologies and confessions. She admitted to feeling lost without me and claimed she had broken things off with Mark. "I realize now that what we had was real and I was stupid to throw it away," she wrote. I felt a mixture of annoyance and pity as I read her words. It was the same old pattern, her trying to manipulate me with guilt and emotion. But this time I was stronger. I took a deep breath and decided to respond, not with anger but with clarity. "Lauren, I appreciate your honesty, but I've moved on. I'm not the same person you left behind. I deserve someone who respects me and our relationship, and that's not you," I typed, my fingers steady as I hit send. It was liberating to finally put my foot down. I had spent too long trying to make excuses for her behavior, but no more. I was done with the emotional games, and I was ready to live my life on my terms. The aftermath of my message was almost instantaneous. Lauren called me, her voice shaky as she begged for a chance to talk in person. Part of me felt a sense of dread. I knew this conversation would be painful, but a larger part of me wanted to face her one last time to close this chapter definitively. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop we used to frequent. When I arrived, I saw her sitting at a table, her hands nervously fidgeting with her coffee cup. The sight of her stirred up old feelings, but I quickly pushed them aside. I was here to assert my boundaries, not to fall back into the past. "Jake, I just want to explain," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. I held up my hand to stop her. "No, Lauren, we've done enough explaining. There's nothing left to say. I'm happy now and I don't want to go back to the pain you caused me," I said, my voice steady. Tears welled in her eyes as she leaned forward, desperate. "I was foolish and I made a terrible mistake. I can't believe I let you slip away. Can't we just try again? I love you." Her words echoed in the air, but they felt hollow. "You say you love me, but love isn't just a feeling, it's action. You betrayed my trust, and that's something I can't simply forget," I replied, feeling a mix of sadness and strength. In that moment, I realized something profound. I had been waiting for her to validate my feelings, to make sense of the chaos she'd created in my life. But now, I didn't need her to tell me I was worthy or deserving of love. I had found that for myself through self-discovery, hard work, and new relationships. As we talked, I remained calm and assertive while she stumbled through her apologies. I could see the desperation in her eyes, but there was also a flicker of realization. She knew she had lost me. It was a bittersweet feeling, knowing that I had finally broken free from her grasp, but also recognizing that she was still struggling with the consequences of her actions. After what felt like an eternity, I stood up to leave. "I wish you well, Lauren, but I can't be part of your life anymore. I need to focus on my future," I said, my voice firm. With that, I walked out, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. The sense of closure was intoxicating. I was no longer tied to the woman who had once consumed my thoughts. I was free to focus on my business, my new relationship with Sarah, and my own happiness. As I drove home that night, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. I had faced my past, confronted my fears, and emerged stronger than ever. There was a new chapter waiting for me, and I was ready to embrace every moment of it. In the days following my final confrontation with Lauren, I felt a renewed sense of freedom. I was no longer shackled by the weight of betrayal or the constant cycle of manipulation. My business continued to grow, and with that growth came confidence and a sense of purpose I hadn't previously known. Each new client I signed felt like a victory, a reminder that I was capable of creating success on my own terms. Sarah and I were getting closer. The chemistry between us was palpable, and it was refreshing to share my dreams and ambitions with someone who genuinely understood and supported me. One night, after a long week of work, Sarah invited me over for dinner at her apartment. As I walked in, I was greeted with the aroma of garlic and herbs wafting from the kitchen. The warm glow of candlelight flickered, creating an intimate atmosphere that made my heart race. "Wow, you went all out," I said, admiring the table set with elegance and care. Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I thought we could celebrate your recent successes. You've been working so hard and I wanted to do something special," she replied, her voice warm and inviting. As we shared a delicious meal, we talked about our aspirations and dreams. It was such a contrast to the conversations I used to have with Lauren, filled with guilt and blame. With Sarah, I felt seen and appreciated. We laughed and shared stories, and for the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely happy. After dinner, we moved to the couch with glasses of wine, and the conversation flowed easily. The air between us was charged with anticipation, and I could feel the chemistry intensifying. Suddenly, Sarah leaned in closer, her lips brushing against mine. The kiss was soft and tentative at first, but it quickly deepened as we lost ourselves in the moment. It felt exhilarating to connect with someone without the baggage of my past. I pulled back, looking into her eyes. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, wanting to ensure we were both on the same page. "Absolutely," she whispered before pulling me back in for another kiss. That night was a turning point for me. I finally felt like I was moving forward, leaving the pain of my past behind. With Sarah by my side, I felt like I could take on the world. We spent the night wrapped in each other's arms, talking about our dreams and futures, and I began to envision a life that was vibrant and full of promise. But as these new blossoms of happiness began to bloom, Lauren's shadow still lingered. Although she had retreated after our last meeting, I knew that she wouldn't stay quiet forever. I had expected her to reach out, but instead I received a surprise that rocked my newfound stability. One afternoon, I was in my office when I received a text from an unknown number. Curiosity piqued, I opened it to find a message from Lauren. "Can we please talk? I need to see you. I have something important to say," it read. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. Hadn't I made myself clear? But part of me was intrigued. What could she possibly have to say that would change anything? After a few moments of deliberation, I decided to respond. "What do you want, Lauren?" I texted back. "Please just give me a chance to explain. It's not what you think," she replied, her tone desperate. I weighed my options. Part of me wanted to ignore her, but I also knew that I couldn't fully move on without confronting whatever it was she wanted to say. I agreed to meet her again, this time at a park near my office, somewhere public and neutral. When I arrived, I spotted her sitting on a bench, nervously twisting her hands in her lap. Her expression reflected a mix of hope and fear. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, her voice shaky. I nodded, crossing my arms as I waited for her to speak. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she started, her eyes searching mine for a reaction. "I've realized how much I've messed up. I was caught up in my own insecurities and didn't appreciate what I had." I resisted, rolling my eyes. "Lauren, I've heard all of this before. You had your chance and you chose to throw everything away." "I know," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "But I've changed. I ended things with Mark and I've been seeing a therapist. I want to work on myself. I want us back, Jake. I can be better." Her words felt like a rehearsed script, and I knew deep down that I couldn't trust her. "You can't just rewrite history with a few words, Lauren. You broke my trust, and that's not something that can be fixed with an apology," I replied, my tone firm. "I understand that, but please just give me a chance to show you," she pleaded. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight. The past pressing down on me. "You don't get it, do you? It's not about giving you another chance. I've moved on, and I'm happy for the first time in a long time. I can't keep dragging myself back into the pain you caused," I stated, letting my resolve shine through. The look in her eyes shifted from desperation to realization. I could see that she understood. I was no longer the man she could manipulate with guilt. Her tears fell freely as she struggled to comprehend the reality of losing me for good. Jake, please don't say that, she choked out, but I knew I had to stand firm. I'm sorry, Lauren. I genuinely wish you the best, but it's time for both of us to move on for good, I said, finally feeling a sense of closure wash over me. As I walked away from that meeting, I felt lighter than I had in years. I had faced the ghosts of my past and emerged victorious. I was paving my way forward, and it was thrilling. I returned to my office with a sense of purpose. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace every moment of it with Sarah by my side. With Lauren finally out of my life for good, I felt a renewed sense of freedom. It was as if a heavy fog had lifted, leaving me with a clearer path ahead. Each day became brighter, filled with opportunities that I was eager to seize. My business was thriving, and with Sarah by my side, I felt more fulfilled than I could have imagined. As the weeks passed, Sarah and I grew closer, and it felt as though I was falling in love again for the first time. She brought joy and laughter into my life, reminding me that happiness could thrive even after heartbreak. We spent weekends exploring new places, trying out new restaurants, and sharing our dreams for the future. I found myself opening up to her in ways I hadn't been able to with anyone else in a long time. One evening, after a particularly successful week at work, we decided to celebrate. I took Sarah to a cozy little restaurant overlooking the city skyline. As we sipped wine and shared a delicious meal, I looked across the table and couldn't help but smile. This was the life I had envisioned, a life full of love, respect, and ambition. After dinner, as we stepped outside, I took her hand and led her to a nearby park. The stars twinkled high above us, and the night air was crisp and refreshing. I found a quiet bench and sat down, pulling her close. I'm really glad you're in my life, Sarah, I said, my voice sincere. She smiled, her eyes sparkling in the moonlight. I feel the same way, Jake. You've come so far, and it's inspiring to see how you've transformed. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what I had gone through and how far I had come. I've learned a lot in the past few months. I realized that I can't let anyone else define my worth. After everything with Lauren, I learned to love myself first, and it's made all the difference. Sarah nodded, her expression reflecting understanding. You deserve all the happiness in the world, and I'm here to support you. In that moment, I knew I was ready for the next step. With my heart racing, I turned to her. I want to be with you, Sarah. I want to explore this connection we have and see where it leads us. Her face lit up with joy, and she squeezed my hand. I want that too, Jake. I truly believe we can build something incredible together. As we basked in the warmth of each other's presence, I felt hope surge within me. I was no longer defined by the pain of my past, but rather by the strength that had emerged from it. I had built my empire from the ashes of betrayal, and now I was ready to embrace this new chapter with Sarah. Life continued to unfold beautifully. My business grew, and I began mentoring young entrepreneurs who were just starting out, sharing the lessons I had learned through my own journey. I found fulfillment in helping others avoid the pitfalls I had faced and guiding them toward their own paths to success. As for Lauren, she eventually faded into the background of my life. I heard through mutual friends that she was trying to rebuild her life, but I had no desire to engage. I had come to terms with the heartbreak and transformed it into something powerful. It was a reminder of my resilience and a testament to my journey. Months later, on a sunny day in early spring, I decided to take Sarah on a surprise trip to the coast, the same place where we had shared our first romantic outing. As we walked along the beach, the waves crashing at our feet, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. Jake, this is beautiful, Sarah said, her eyes gleaming with delight. I smiled, taking in the moment. You deserve this and so much more, I replied, feeling a surge of affection for her. As we strolled hand in hand, I gathered my courage to take the next step. When we reached a secluded spot overlooking the ocean, I turned to her, my heart pounding in my chest. Sarah, I want you to know that you've changed my life for the better. You've shown me what it means to truly be loved. I want to build a future with you. Will you be my partner in this journey? Will you marry me? Her eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment I felt a rush of anxiety. But then a radiant smile broke across her face. Yes, 1,000 times yes, she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around me. In that moment, everything felt perfect. I had not only rebuilt my life, but I had also found love again, love that was real, supportive, and filled with promise. As we stood there, surrounded by the beauty of the ocean and the warmth of the sun, I knew that I had finally emerged from the darkness of my past. I had built my empire, and now I was ready to embrace the incredible future that awaited me, hand in hand with Sarah. Life had a way of teaching us lessons, but it also had a way of rewarding those who dared to rise above their struggles. And I was ready for whatever came next.